Hello and welcome, everybody. Tonight we're talking about getting your finances sorted and earning the salary that you deserve. Ah, I do recognize the irony. I want to start straight up, full transparency. I recognize the irony of me teaching on earning the salary that you deserve because, boy, I learned that one the hard way. And it was several years into my business for me to take myself and my finances seriously. So the fact that I am here now talking about it, it really means that I'm in a good position to talk about it because I have really fallen down and had to dust myself off and get back up again. And so hopefully you can learn from my mistakes, but also, they are the big lessons. These are the big lessons that you learn in business that will help shape your growth and help shape your business growth. And so I'm honored tonight to be here. But I do recognize and want to acknowledge the irony that I'm going to be talking about all things finances and salary. My accountant thinks it's hilarious too. I spoke to him this morning. So welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that I'm hoping that what I'm going to be able to bring to you is the side of things that will help it seem less scary. If you're not a person who feels like you have your ducks in a row, then hopefully lining them up tonight will be a simpler process than you've been dream casting or doom casting in your mind. Because often we put these things off because we think that it's going to, really be difficult and at the end of the world, when actually once we've got a clear direction, they kind of don't seem too bad. So welcome. I'm so glad you're here. I do want to acknowledge that I am presenting tonight and recording live here on Biripi land, and I pay my respects to the elders past, present, and emerging. And if you are watching the recording or if you're watching here live tonight, I encourage you to take a photo of your takeaways, take a photo of your notes, take a photo of me on the screen and the action that I'm getting up to and post it on your Insta story or your Facebook feed and tag me at Simply Stacey Morgan and use the hashtag business coach. I would love to see. All right, let's get stuck straight in. Number one, I've got 3 strategies for you tonight. And the first one is to get your ducks in a row. And for me, this means several different things, but in practice, it looks like stuff that has to happen, yes, now because it's the end of the financial year, but it's also stuff that needs to happen along the process as the year goes on. And so whether or not you've got these things organized now, and no shame if you haven't, but what we hope to do tonight is to be able to identify the things that you need to do and to set up a plan or a system for you to be able to do that throughout the year next year, so that this time next year, you're not feeling completely overwhelmed and thinking, oh my goodness, I hate this time of year. How is it going to go? What do I need to do? I can't believe I'm here again. All of those thoughts, which I'm sure many of you are feeling at this time of the year. Even just turning up tonight is an acknowledgement that it's that time of year and these things need to be done, right? So I appreciate that you're here and I appreciate that you are keen to put these things into practice. So let's think about the things that we need to sort out. First of all, we need to get a good understanding of what our income has been in the past year, and that is the income in the business. It could be the income when you're talking about the money that you've earned, the salary that you've taken from your business. Perhaps your business is a side hustle, and so perhaps a discussion needs to happen with your accountant as to money that needs to stay in the business and money that needs to be taken out of the business and the tax benefits or not so benefits of doing that, but getting a really clear understanding of where your income sits and what that looks like compared to last year, what it looks like compared to the last 5 years. And I'm normally I would only look back 3 years, but because the last 3 years have been I tend to go back 5 years because I like to remember what the glory days were like. So doing a 5-year, look back and reflection as to what your income looks like now compared to what it looked like before COVID and during COVID and post-COVID, I think is really important. In the same vein, I would be looking at your expenses. I know for me, my expenses are a world away from what they used to be, and that's not a good thing. But in saying that, there are things that I have been able to tighten up on, things that I've been able to really look at post-COVID and think, do I need to be spending money on that? And I know it's something we've always done, but is it something we need to continue doing? And so looking at your expenses again, looking back on the last couple of years, what is it compared to? What does it look like? Is it more or less than what I forecast? Or if you haven't set up a forecast, how does it feel? When you look at those figures, how do they feel when you break it down and think, okay, this is what I spent on rent. This is what I spent on marketing. This is what I spent on wages. This is what I'm spending in the business. How does that feel? Is it something that makes you go, yes, that's understandable, I get that? Or is it something that makes you go, oh, really? Is that true? And so many times I click into the expenses on my profit and loss and I go, oh, that can't be right. And then I click onto it and I go, oh yeah, yep, yep. And there was that, and then there was that, and then, yeah, okay, that all adds up. Like I am smarter than my accounting system. Sometimes I think, oh yes, okay, the maths that was right. So, okay, I need to rethink that for next year. So get a really good handle on what your expenses look like too. I would do get up to date in terms of your reconciliation. I use Xero, which I am obsessed with because it just suits me to a T because it's simple, simple, simple. But you might use MYOB. You still might be using an old school paper system. Whatever the system is that you use, I encourage you to lean into it and get those files up to date. Get your reconciling done. Make sure everything matches off. Make sure you know who owes you money and who doesn't owe you money in the business. Make sure you know what bills need to be paid, both personal and business, and make sure you get all of that squared up before the end of the month. I love it when you get to this time of the month because every second ad on the radio and every second ad I get on Facebook is like, end of financial year sales, spend your money now. And I used to in the old days, like call my accountant and say, should I buy a new computer now? Just because I heard the Harvey Norman ads. Whereas now, knowing what my expenses look like, knowing what my income has been, and making sure that all of that is reconciled gives me a really good understanding that no, Stacey, you shouldn't be buying a new computer now, even though you hear the sale ads on the radio. It's really good to just have a really good understanding of what is what so that you don't have those niggling questions that you might go and do some retail damage on. Get your receipts in order. If you are a person that stores all of your receipts in the glove box of your car, then I encourage you to find a better system. If you use Xero or MYOB, they all have apps that you can use where you can scan your receipts. Perhaps you have a different, there's 100 different apps out there that you can use. Jump in the chat if you have a better one that you'd like to suggest for everyone, but get your receipts in order now. Have a look at your wages. If you've still got wages that need to be paid between now and the end of the financial year, make sure that you have enough money in the bank in order to do that, or you have the cash flow that's going to come in to make sure that you're going to be able to pay those wages. And the same thing with your superannuation. Know what you've got coming up and know what you need to make sure that you've planned for, and have a look at what those numbers look like in comparison to the last couple of years so that you can have a better understanding of where you sit. Perhaps you've been spending more money. I know the minimum wage is going up for many awards at the end of this month. So thinking about that in terms of your forecast, what did you pay in wages this year? And do you need to make sure that you're going to have enough money to put that increase into practice and make sure that you're going to be in a good position this time next year and not going, oh, hang on, how did that happen? And any of those extras as well that you need to think about. Perhaps there are things that you need to purchase by the end of the financial year. Perhaps you do need to have a conversation with your accountant about what those things are and the benefits of buying it now rather than later, or waiting until later and showing some self-restraint, which is what I'm trying to do currently. So have a think about all of those extras that come into play as well. Do you have a shoebox of receipts? Let's kind of like not normalize that as a system. And for me, it used to be. And this is I've told this story so many times, but this is the irony of my practice. In the early days of the business, I would do everything myself. I'd do the wages myself. I'd do the receipts. I'd do the accounts receivable and the accounts payable. I'd do all the things because I wasn't going to spend money on a bookkeeper or an accountant because those people were expensive. And I thought I could do it myself. But what I would do is I would show up at my accountant's at the end of the financial year with a big shoebox of receipts and my old school wages books, those old, open up, you write in pencil in the squares books. And I would say, here it is, ta-da, this is all my hard work. And then she would spend 20 hours trying to undo all of my mistakes and to make sense of the shoebox box full of receipts. And it ended up costing me more in accountant's fees than it would have to just hire a bookkeeper or hire an accountant to be on top of it every month so that at the end of the financial year wasn't such a drama. Lesson learned. So get your books in order, get a better system than the shoebox full of receipts so that you can make sure that this end of year process that happens is not stressful, that it's not okay, I've left everything until the last minute. I've left a year's worth of expenses to be reconciled until now, because nobody wants to do that job. Even people that love numbers and love this kind of stuff don't want that job. And My accountant, I've changed accountants since. And when I went to change accountants and I took her a big bunch of flowers because it felt like I was breaking up with her because we'd had a really emotional relationship. I'd really leaned on her in my time of need. Can you imagine? I now look back on it. I really felt bad when I went to her and said, I need a bit more strategic advice. So I'm changing accountants. Can you imagine her relief? I was walking out the door thinking, oh, I'm a horrible person. But can you imagine her relief as I was leaving? She would have been like, get out. Good riddance. So she's an angel, and I'm really appreciative for her helping me out in those early days of my business. But if you are still living in that shoebox full of receipts and you think that your accountant is like later, then I encourage you, get your books in order, get a system in place. If you need help, reach out, ask for help. Don't try and do it all on your own. There are people that you can find on Airtasker that will come in and sort that stuff out for you. There are people that will do data entry and put the receipts into a spreadsheet so that you can figure out what you spent and when you spent it and matched up against your bank account. You don't have to do it all yourself. You don't have to think, oh, okay, I'm going to put this weekend aside and then clean everything in your house from top to bottom to avoid doing actually what you need to do. I know what you're thinking. I've got you. So outsource that. Ask for help if you need it. And of course, information is power. If you know exactly what everything looks like and where everything is, and you understand what it looks like in terms of your income, your expenses, and all the money that you've been spending on all of the various expenses of running a business, including, paying wages and making sure that your resources are all looked after, then you're going to feel more in control. You're going to feel less overwhelmed. You're going to feel like, okay, I've got this, which you actually do. But it's just really great when you have that information, when you've got the information in front of you and you can make good decisions based on those numbers. So my tangible takeaway for part 1 is to get your ducks in a row, thinking about the things that we spoke about today, and to ask yourself, what is stopping you from moving forward on this task? If you are the person that's thinking, I'll put it, we'll do that this weekend. This weekend will be it. And you know that when this weekend comes around, you're going to maybe take yourself out for breakfast to get yourself in the mood. And then you're going to come home and then you're going to phone a friend. And then you're going to just catch up on that last episode of Netflix that you haven't. And then you're going to clean the underneath vanity in your bathroom and sort out, which of those body lotions are out of date. And then you're going to go down into the laundry. And if that is you, and you're already going, it's me, then ask yourself, what is stopping you from moving forward on this task? Is it that you're scared that if you look at the numbers, you're going to go, oh gosh, my business is terrible? Is it that you're going to look at the numbers and you're not going to understand the numbers? And that's okay too. These things are all part of the learning process. Or is it that you just don't quite know where to start? All of those things are okay. Reach out for help. Ask people that you have around you, and find an accountability partner. If you think that you're going to be procrastinating on the day that you say that you're going to do all this stuff, then tell somebody. Make sure somebody knows about it. Make sure you have a reward set for you at the end. Perhaps you're taking yourself out for dinner. Perhaps there's a Mars bar in the fridge. Whatever works for you. Find an accountability partner, get a reward in place, and just get to it. Get those ducks in a row. And if you want to implement Financial Fridays, I swear by Financial Fridays in terms of setting up a regular time to be able to look at what your accounts look like, to be able to do that reconciling, do it on a Friday, make it a Financial Friday. And if that makes you go, oh, do I have to? Take yourself to a cafe to do it. Take your laptop. Be one of those people. I'm definitely one of those people. Number 2, are you paying yourself? Of course, we all would love our businesses to be paying our, a gorgeous, big, juicy salary. I was having this conversation with Patrick and Henry at the dinner table tonight. And Patrick said, "You're rich, right, Mum? You're rich." I said, "What makes you say that?" He said, "Well, Henry told me that you've got $100. I said, I do. I do have $100. Henry said, "See?" Patrick said, "Yeah, you're rich. You're rich, Mum." Funny, it was that easy, right? So thinking about paying yourself and thinking about the importance of paying yourself. When I started my business, I wasn't paying myself because every tiny piece of money that I earned, I wanted to put back into the business. Every time I had spare money, I wanted to buy new tutus for my students. I wanted to buy a brand new sparkly costume. I wanted to buy brand new tap shoes for me to, teach in. I was just putting the money back into the business the entire time. And what that taught me was not great lessons, because it taught me that the work I was doing wasn't valued. It taught me that it wasn't okay for me to be earning money from all of the hard work that I'd been doing. And I don't know where I got this lesson that I was, living out, that I didn't deserve to earn money. And it's since changed. But paying yourself, even if it's just a tiny amount from day one, is incredibly important for your mindset. It's incredibly important for your value. And it's also really important for your business as well. So I really want you to think about what paying yourself now is going to do for you and for your business, because it's not just about you. It is, because if you're the heart and soul of your business, it very much is about you, but it's also about your business as well. So firstly, it's going to establish if you're going to establish a consistent salary, it's going to help you manage your personal finances. It's going to help you know what you're contributing to your family. It's going to help you know what you're contributing to your mortgage. It's going to give you regularity and consistency. And it's also going to make you feel like, okay, I'm doing this work and I'm getting paid. I'm doing this work and I'm getting paid. And that's a rhythm that we're used to in terms of in the corporate world, or in terms of, the job that we had at the local news agency when we were 15. You do the work and then you get paid for it. You want to have that rhythm. You want to set that rhythm up really early in your business. So get consistent with the amount. It doesn't have to be a large amount, but get consistent so that you know what you can contribute, when you can contribute, and know that it's coming out on a regular basis. Paying yourself is also going to help you avoid dipping into business funds for personal expenses, which is going to hurt the business in the long run. It's also going to really confuse things. So really try and get specific in terms of the money, the card that you're going to use for business and the card you're going to use for personal stuff. And I just love being able to have multiple cards on my phone, because I don't have to go, oh, I didn't bring the business visa. I've got everything at my fingertips now. So there's no excuse for when my accountant comes back to me and says, well, you bought that on the wrong card. Like that's not meant to be there. So it's important that you be able to have some clarity and some distinction. Business stuff over here, personal stuff over there. You want to really make sure that there is a separation and decompartmentalization of those two things. And there are some things that will cross over. You may have certain things that are for you that you use in your business, and that's okay. But you need to get really clear with your accountant as to what is okay and what is not okay, and to start that pattern now, because that will enable you to actually be able to see, okay, what is the business making? And what am I making personally? It's important to know both of those numbers. And paying yourself can help you build credit and establish financial history, which will be really important if you want to get a loan, if you want to sell the business, if you want to, go for funding, if you want to put in a grant application. These things are really important. If you want to bring partners into the business, if you just want to see where stuff is at, it's really important that if you're paying yourself, it's going to give you, put you in a position that will benefit the business, and it will benefit you personally as well, especially in this time with, rising interest rates and people shopping around. You want to be able to have that consistency so that when you go to the bank and say, we want to refinance things, it's really clear what the business is doing, and it's really clear what you are gaining from that personally. But most importantly, when you pay yourself, you feel like you've earned it. You feel like all these hard, long hours that you're doing, all the tears, all the, the blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting into your business are completely worth it. And so that was a big lesson for me in not paying myself a salary for as long as I did within my business. It led me to completely resenting the work that I was doing, completely lacking motivation and the ability to get myself out of bed on a Monday morning to get to work. And I was just overall completely frustrated with things that shouldn't frustrate me within the business. But every time that some little thing happened, or some little complaint came in, or just something wasn't going my way, I was like, well, I'm not being paid for this anyway. That kind of attitude. That's not good for anybody. It's not good for the business. It wasn't good for me. It wasn't good for my husband, who copped most of the flack. And it's just going to build up and build up and build up and build up. So we could talk all day about resentment and carrying around resentment. And we don't want that as a small business owner. We don't want that as a partner. We don't want that as a mum. We want to make sure that we are in a really good position, physically, mentally, socially, emotionally, all of those things. And so one thing to be able to get yourself, into a really good position, loving your business, loving your work, and giving yourself longevity in this business as well, because you've got to think it's not sustainable to be working that hard and to not be earning any money. So you want to be able to find a way to make sure that you are being compensated for the hard work that you're doing, so that you don't end up resentful, so that you do continue to have motivation to go to work every day, and so that you don't end up frustrated and taking it out on your husband like I was. So the tangible takeaway for number 2 is to start paying yourself. Just start paying yourself. Now, work out with your accountant what that needs to be and what that can look like, because you don't want to go, okay, Stacey said to pay myself, so I'm just going to, extract $7,000 a month out of the business account and then hope for the best. You want to have a discussion with your accountant. And you know what? In the early days for me, it was like the bare minimum. Like what would keep me under the because I still had my business, and I had my business and I had my day job. And so what could I take from the business that was going to keep me under the radar in terms of not having to pay too much tax? And your accountant will know all that stuff. So have a discussion with them. I want to pay myself consistently. What does that look like? What can it look like? And what are the pros and cons? What is going to happen if I do this? What's going to happen if I do this? Have that discussion. If you're worried about that, just start with that sentence. I'd like to pay myself. Please help. And start small. It doesn't have to be big. As I said, mine was like bare minimum, but it was just something just to make me feel like, okay, yes, all this hard work is absolutely worth it. I'd see the money drop in. I'd see my name on the wages list, and it made a whole lot of a difference. Isn't that silly? Like, I love my business. It was very much my business, but gosh, that made a difference when that consistency jumped in. And be really transparent. If you are using the business to pay for life expenses, like if your car goes through the business, if your phone goes through the business, if you're getting fuel and it's going through the business, then you need to factor that into your mental salary, because that was, something that I was not good at. And sometimes I'm still not good at, because I think, I'm not being paid enough for this, as we all like to say when we're having one of those days. But when I actually think about the money that that I would have to spend externally if I had a completely separate phone that wasn't my business phone, and I'm all wrapped up in my business phone being my phone that I carry around. And so if I was spending that money externally, then that's money that, I need to, make part of my mental salary that I'm taking home as well. So try and factor that in too when you have one of those days where you're like, not getting out of bed for less than. Does anyone have those days? All right. And number 3 is to have the right people in your corner and to ask the right questions. And this is sometimes the part that really scares people. And I don't want you to be scared, and I don't want you to be like shut down. I don't want you to be like, okay, yep, nope, at this particular point in time, because this is the important stuff. And this is the stuff that's actually going to move the needle and actually where rubber hits the road and all of those analogies, because this is the good stuff. You do want to have the right people in your corner, and you do want to be asking the right questions. In the early days, I could tell you how to do a pirouette. I could give you all the ingredients you needed to make that turn happen, whether you wanted to turn around once or 24 times. But what to ask my accountant? Clueless. Had no idea. So I really want to spend some time talking about the people that you need in your corner and the questions that you need to ask. So, do you need a bookkeeper? This is so many of my coaching clients come to me and they say, do I need a bookkeeper? Do I need a financial planner? Do I need an accountant? And my answer to that is yes, yes, yes. Because ultimately they all have different roles. They all play different roles in your business. They all have different things that they bring to the business. They all have different knowledge and skill sets that they're going to bring to your business. And if you want to really set yourself up in terms of the long run, what's the end game, then I encourage you to get, yes, a bookkeeper, yes, a financial planner, and yes, an accountant. Now, full disclosure, I don't have a bookkeeper, but I do have a brilliant administration assistant. An artistic administrator is her title, and she handles all of our accounts. So she's not officially an external bookkeeper, which so I recommend to so many of my coaching clients who, especially the solopreneurs, hire a bookkeeper, get somebody there that's going to take care of that side of things. I'm just super blessed and lucky that I have somebody in-house that handles that for me. Your financial planner is the person that's going to be able to say, okay, this is what, insurance you need. This is what's going to happen at the end of the business running. This is what you want to be aiming towards or working towards, or this is how much you need to be putting aside. That's the person that's like long game. And then the accountant is the person that's like the short game. What do I need to know now? How do I get myself sorted? How do I get organized? My accountant jokes with me because I answer the phone like this. Oh God, what have I done? And he says to me, can't I just call for a chat? Like, can't I just call and you not go boom, boom, boom and doom and gloom? I think he would just really like it if I just answered the phone with a smiling face, but I'm always like, oh, what have I missed? What have I done? So yes, get yourself a good accountant, preferably one with a sense of humor like mine. Get yourself a financial planner that can look for the long-term stuff, and get a bookkeeper that is going to stay on top of the day-to-day so that when you get to the end of the financial year, you have everything sorted. Now, if you're in a position where you have none of those things and it's the end of the financial year and you're going, oh my goodness, how am I going to do all of this? Please do not stress. This doesn't have to be something that happens tomorrow, though I do encourage you to start looking into what systems you need in place for the next financial year so that you can put them in place now so that by the time we get to this time next year, you're not like, still feeling that like, oof, gosh. And have those meetings. Have those meetings in July. Like, get it booked in now. Get it organized so that you can, start on the right foot. You don't want to wait until October to do it and then be like, oh gosh, yes, I've got to, backtrack to July. Get on top of it now. If you need recommendations for bookkeepers, financial planners, accountants, the great thing about so many of these people is they can work remotely. So jump into the Facebook group, our How to Run a Successful Business and Still Have a Life Facebook group, and ask the question. People will be there and people will be able to share what is working for them and who they would recommend. Okay. When you get your accountant sorted and, they call you and you don't say, what have I done? And you say, hi, so nice to talk to you. Thank you for calling me. I need you to ask some of these questions because these are the things that are really going to be important long-term. And they are things that both you and them need to be thinking about. So you want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So you want to be talking, like we talked before, about what deductions am I eligible for, what things are going to be considered business expenses and what things are not going to be considered business expenses. You see me jotting around the world all the time, heading to Disneyland and heading to New York and things like that. And there are parts of those trips that are very much deductible expenses because of the different hats that I wear and the different roles that I play. But there are parts of that are absolutely not. And so getting really clear on that is super important. You also want to ask if there are any changes to the tax laws that will affect you. We talked about wage increases at the end of this financial year. We super is going up as well. So in terms of tax law, your accountant is the person to be asking about any of those changes that are relevant. If they're proactive enough, they should be, letting you know, hey, this is what you need to be aware of. Hey, this is what needs to happen. Because if you have somebody that isn't, if they're expecting you to, stay abreast with what's going on in the news and make sure you're making the changes, then perhaps you need an accountant. Because we're running businesses. We're nurturing families. We've got enough on our plate. We can't necessarily keep up to date with all of that stuff. That's what a good accountant does. How can you reduce your tax liability? Super important, especially if you have things like you've got your day job, and so you're getting perhaps a wage from that. Then you've got the business and the salary you're taking from that. Perhaps you've got a family trust. Perhaps you've got an inheritance. Perhaps you've got shares. Perhaps you've got all of these things. You want to talk to them about how you can reduce your tax liability. You want to know what documents you need to provide them with. What are they going to need? Do they need your log-on details to your accounting system? Do they just need printouts? Do they need the dusty book from underneath your desk that has, the pile of receipts stuck inside it? What do they need? So make sure you ask that. And what steps can I take now to better prepare for next year's tax season? We talked about that earlier, of course, putting in place the things that need to get done now for next year so that this time next year you're like coasting through and don't even need to attend a webinar about getting your finances sorted because you so got it together. So the tangible takeaway for part number 3 is to book a meeting with your accountant, even if you don't know what to say. Perhaps if you've taken notes from the questions, the prompts that I've given you, take those in and start there. But as I said, a good proactive accountant will come to you with suggestions, will come to you with a plan, will come to you with ideas of how things can look better, or, will be proactive in terms of what you need to know as the business owner, because hopefully there's somebody who's working with lots of small businesses. Make notes in that meeting. Don't be afraid to make notes. Don't sit there and nod and smile. I'm guilty of that. Like, okay. Yep. I walk out and go, I didn't understand a word she said. So make notes in the room. And if you feel self-conscious about that, just say, do you mind if I make notes? I'm going to make lots of notes. Or do you mind if I record this? Perhaps some people won't want to be recorded, but if you want to set your camera up or put your notes, your voice message on, of course, let people know if you're going to record them. So put that on so that you can take all that information home, and then you can look it over and then ask questions, and ask again if you don't understand, and ask again, and keep asking the questions until you really understand where you're at. That information is power. We talked about that earlier. And get a team behind you. Make sure you have a bookkeeper, and make sure the bookkeeper understands what the accountant needs. Make sure that the financial planner understands the long-term financial goals that you have and understands what's going on in the world of your accountant, so that they have a really good understanding of what's going on right now, so that they can plan what you're going to do for the future. You want a team that talks to each other. You want a team that understands each other, and you want a team that understands you and listens to you, because at the end of the day, it's your money, and you need to be fully across where it's going and what it's doing. All right, in reflection, I'd like you to list 5 takeaways from this session that you're going to implement. If you are brave, throw that in the chat right now. I'd love you also to have a really good think about the people that are going to help hold you accountable to these changes. We talked before about getting somebody in your corner and finding an accountability partner, having a Mars bar in the fridge. Really have a think about what is going to help move you forward. So many of us get stuck, especially when it comes to this stuff. We think, oh, that's not really my jam. So I might just stick my head in the sand and hope that goes away. It's not going to go anywhere. So if you've got somebody in your corner, somebody that you trust, somebody that's not going to judge you or shame you or make you feel like garbage because you, don't love this stuff, find somebody that can be a cheerleader for you, somebody that you would like in your corner, and put those people's name down on your notes right now. Let's have it. Let's see who it's going to be. Let's see who is going to be the people that are going to help hold you accountable. And I want you to tell me where you're going to start. I want you to write that down as well. What's the first thing that you're going to do? Because it's one thing to take the time to be here tonight or to watch the recording at home and to go, yes, okay, Stacey, yep, okay, I need to do that and that and that. I get it. But what are you going to do first? Because if you just look at the big list of things, you'll go, oh, yeah, no, I'm going to go back to my to-do list and, answer some emails. What's the first thing you're going to do? Where are you going to start? You're going to book that meeting with your accountant? You're going to get the shoebox out from under the bed and dust off all those receipts and get them into some kind of spreadsheet? Are you going to jump on Airtasker tonight and find a local university student that'll, take $15 an hour to input those numbers into a spreadsheet for you? What are you going to start with? Where are you going to start? What's going to be the first thing that you're going to do? And just take that now and either stick it in your diary / calendar or stick it on your to-do list. Stick it on a Post-it note and stick it on your computer. Stick it somewhere so that you know where to start and that you're ready to go. It's so important to be able to take this information, take this learning that you're doing and actually go into action mode and be able to action it. And if you want me to be your accountability partner, which of course I'm always open to being, and, full disclosure, I do recognize the irony. I'm going to help you hold you accountable for my finances. It means I have to keep kicking my own butt to make sure that I am being accountable with mine too. And don't worry, I have accountability partners and a fabulous business mentor who are looking after me. So if you want me to be your accountability partner, or if you have other business goals that you would like to get to, perhaps you want to get your ducks in a row so this time next year you really have a good understanding of where your business is at, then you can book up to the end of this month, buy 2 sessions and get 1 free on my website, simplystaceymorgan.com. So that's, you buy 2 sessions, you get 1 free. So we have 3 sessions together. We'll do them over the next 6 months so that you can have some consistency, so that you can have somebody checking in with you, so that you can actually get momentum. You can reach perhaps those short-term goals that you have, and you can really make some traction heading towards the long-term goals that you have too. And of course, stay in touch. You can find me on Instagram at Simply Stacey Morgan. You can jump on my newsletter list by following the QR code. You can always send me an email at hello@simplystaceymorgan.com. I appreciate you taking the time to be here